Hello, this is Micah with FOAB and 9185 Robotics. And this is part 4 of our mini-series on how to use Inventor for CADing robots and using it throughout the competition season. In part 4, we're going to be going over the basics of how to use drawing files in Inventor. This video is not going to cover all of the best practices. There's plenty of videos on best practices for drawing files. On the engineering side, this is just the basics of how to use the software. And maybe some recommendations on how to get started. We're going to do a drawing file specifically for this custom triangle part we made in a previous video. So how this is going to work is we're going to go to File, New. We're just going to create a standard drawing file. Now, in industry, this is going to open a very big piece of paper where you can put lots of different information. In the case of Vex Robotics, most schools don't have access to a printer, one, that can print this size, and two, it's really unneeded for a lot of the parts we are working with. So what you can do is come over here, right click on this, and we can edit the sheet. Now, they have a bunch of different options, and you can choose any of these. I normally go with custom size, and I'm just so we can create a custom drawing file size that you can use in a notebook or in a binder of a certain size, or maybe you're creating a display of some kind. We're going to set the height to 10 inches and the width to 8 inches. We're going to make this portrait. And just like that, I now have a custom sized drawing file that I can use moving forward for whatever my use cases are. Personally, I don't like having all this extra stuff. A lot of it is not used in the basics for a drawing file. Definitely need it in industry, but I don't think it's necessarily needed when you're just getting started. I have this blank canvas here, blank drawing file. I'm going to come up, and what you can do is you can place views. So what that looks like is we can take a view here, and this is which file we want the view of. So I'm going to start with our test assembly. I'm just going to put a small little view of this up here. We're going to make this a 1/3 scale. Okay, we're just going to place that, and that's just going to tell us where we're using this part. Obviously, you can create multi views of this in the future. So, like for example, if I needed a different view of it in different angles, I can always go in and place those by right-clicking it and editing the view. I'm going to make it color just because I think it looks a little bit better. And that just tells us where we're using that part. Next, what we're going to do is we're also going to place the views for our actual triangle piece here. If you can, I make it 1:1 scale, just so it makes it easier to be able for judges and stuff to see the actual size of the part you're using. So I'm placing 2 views here. We want to show every needed angle of a part. If I did this is kind of redundant. They are the same thickness, so you really only need the 2 views for the plastic part. And I can left click and move these however I wish. The other thing you can do, there's different options here when you're placing views. You can break out to go, like if you had something, a piece of plastic covering something and you wanted to break through it and see what was behind it. That's what breakout does. You can slice, section, also kind of, it gives you these descriptions here, which are super helpful. And as you get into more advanced drawing files, maybe it is super important to need these, and I'm sure you can find videos on that. Detail, all that does is, like for this view, if I wanted to detail of this, left click, draw a circle, and then I can get a slightly bigger view of it right here. That's what detail does. That's probably the second most used, I would say. But again, I don't really need it. Another is auxiliary. So if I wanted to click this, project it. Like if I wanted to click this and get like a side view of it, I can do that. Just like that. Again, may not be needed. I also recommend, if you're doing an isometric view like this, to go in and just go ahead and make it color. It looks a little bit nicer. Really shows people what they're looking at. The other important part besides just placing the views is actually documenting what you're looking at, and you can do that with annotate. First thing is dimensions, super important, especially if this is a custom piece and you're laser cutting it. It may be important to know the exact dimensions of your parts, both for your notebook and also for the judges, to make sure you are following all the rules. So I just clicked the top of that and the bottom of here, and that gives me my first dimension. And then I'm also just going to get the overall dimension here. Didn't do that right. Overall dimension, maybe. There we go. So it's a 3.5 by 3.5 inch square. I'm also, you can right click or left click on circles and get the diameters. I can also get the radius of a fillet. What else? Oh, if you have a hole here in the center, it may be important to know exactly where that hole is going to be. So doing something like this may be important to know exactly where that is placed from your 0. You may also want to go in and dimension where these holes are. You may also be able to do this. Again, there are more videos on the best practices, and it may be something you learn in your Project Lead the Way classes, but there's tons of videos on best practices for drawing files, and what's needed for Vex and what's not needed for Vex, or what's expected in industry can be different, but these are just like basic. You want to try and dimension everything, but you don't want to over dimension and show information that is redundant. The other thing, you can also, with the dimension tool, go in and do the angle. So I can show that this is a 45-degree angle here. Again, that may be a little bit redundant just because you can see that this is a square. But again, depending on the part you're using, might be important. The other thing you can do is there's these text options. Another very useful tool is I can come in here and I can go like this. Continue. So that was a left click and then a right click to continue. And I'm just going to say 4 36 tooth here. And that's just adding a note if you need to point something out as important, or you need to make a note and point to it. Another useful tool is this text box here. So I can draw a text box, and then I can put in the name of what we're looking at since we deleted the other view box. So this is custom triangle. I'm going to put my name on it just so people know it's my part, and my team name or number. So it's custom triangle. I made it from FOAB. The other thing that might be important to notate in here is, like, for example, coming in here, and I like to put that this is 1:1 scale. And then I'll also notate up here that this is 1/3 scale. And that is pretty much the basics of the drawing file. Again, more videos online. These are just the basics to get started. I, of course, want to save it, and it will save as a drawing file or a .dwg. So I'm going to save this as custom drawing. Now that may not be the best format to use for your notebook or the tool you're using, so you may want to export. You can export as a PDF or image. PDF tends to work great in most cases, but yeah, that's the basics of using a drawing file. I hope this was helpful, and if there's anything else you want a video about or include it, let me know in the comments and I can make a short video on that in the future.